I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and it's time to get wealthy. You're going to learn what you need to know and do to finally achieve the level of financial success you desire and you deserve. The struggle is real for women of color in the workplace. Black women specifically represent about 14.5% of roles in business and management in the U.S. Many find themselves stuck and unable to move into the senior ranks where all of the money resides, those stock options and those benefits. Well, joining us today is someone who's going to give us the exact strategy needed to move beyond those circumstances and become unstuck and unstoppable. Well, here are the 3 things that they don't want you to know about what it means to really accelerate your career into the senior management ranks. Number 1 is what got you to your current role will not get you to the next role. The other thing is no one is going to come and tap you on the shoulder and say, you're doing a great job, you're ready for the next level. And then finally, you get what you negotiate. And here to share with us exactly what we need to do is someone who was born to inspire. She's Janine K. Brown, and she's made it into the ranks of some of those management roles that we see. She has now made it her goal to help other women of color find their own success roadmap. She is the author of Unstuck and Unstoppable, and she's going to be sharing 5 strategies with us to help us move beyond those limiting beliefs and make it to the next level. Janine K. Brown, it's wonderful to have you here and show us how to get wealthy in our careers.
Well, Deborah, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor and a pleasure. I feel super special. So thanks again for having me today.
Super special. Well, you know what I'm excited about is the fact that we were able to spend some time together and I was able to learn a little more about you. And what's interesting, I'm gonna tell so that can we have a conversation? Are we family?
That's exactly why I'm here. Yes, let's do it.
Excellent. Well, what I find really interesting about your work, and when I was doing research, is you don't really talk about your own career and the fact that you're a certified public accountant. You have had roles in some of the most significant consulting organizations, and though I didn't find that in your bio, so the question I have before we even get into it is, why is that?
That is a great question. I think I spend a lot of time focusing on the results that we get for our clients and using my own career, my career roadblocks, my career successes, and try to model that for them before I start talking about the credentials. I mean, Deborah, a lot of people achieve the credentials, they get the classroom knowledge, but they don't acquire some of the work knowledge, right? They haven't been in the boardrooms, they haven't made decisions and had high impact negotiations. And so they're typically just talking book work. And so I like to spend my time talking about, the examples and giving real examples about what I've done. I'm proud of those things and those accomplishments. And I think the other thing too, when you get a license and it's not active anymore, you don't always talk about it. And I've kind of moved out of the accounting and finance space as a practitioner, but definitely in the space is helping women in accounting and finance achieve those high career goals that they have and make it.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because you feel like that lends itself to credibility. And the truth is, Janine, there aren't a lot of Black women in senior management roles. We often find ourselves as one of the only in many circumstances. And so I feel like you and I, we went in and we took the blows and the strikes, but we also got intel. that we're now able to share with others. And I guess that's the point that you're making.
Yeah.
And so I want to start with the framework for our financial success on Get Wealthy is mindset, strategy, and execution. And so I want to start with mindset because I do feel that particularly for women who are maybe first generation, even corporate executives and find themselves in that role, don't have like that person, that mentor, a family member whispering in their ear. And so as a result, they may not know how to operate. And so I want to begin with the first question really is, what is the mindset that women need to adopt in order to move into that next level or senior management in their careers?
Deborah, I'm so glad you brought that up because mindset is really essential in having success in these corporate careers. I think, and it's not something that's taught in college. It's not even discussed in college. So when I think about that question, and I think about the challenges a lot of women have in the workplace, they haven't created the mindset that's going to help them move forward, work through the challenges that they need to work through. They're focused on the skills, like the skills that I have, my ability to get the work done faster, that I have the degrees. But mindset is essential. And the reason you need to have a strong mindset is because you don't know what's going to happen when you get in the office on any given day. Change is constant in corporate America. Companies are constantly reorging, and you have to have the ability to stand strong no matter what is going on around you, and also be able to keep a good poker face during a negotiation and during the changes and in leadership, and when you're dealing with microaggressions related to gender or race or education in the workplace. So without that, I don't even know. I think that's how a lot of women actually get a little burned out because they haven't created a routine and the intentions, the mantras, the affirmations, whatever it is that they need to keep them mentally strong so that they can stay emotionally strong at work.
Woo! You said a mouthful. And what I love the fact is that you mentioned mantras and affirmations. And one of the things that I often tell women in my community is every morning I get up and I say, I have everything I need to be everything I need to be. Mm-hmm. And I say that to validate the fact that I know that I'm going to there are going to be challenges. Things aren't going to necessarily work out the way that I think they are in so many different circumstances, right? Because we don't have control over things. And it's affirming myself that allows me to know that I'm going to hit something, but it's not about what happens. It's about how I respond to it. Yep. So to that end, one of the things in your book you talk about that I think is important around mindset is being bold. However, it's a double-edged sword for Black women in that typically I would find myself in rooms where I was the only, and everyone would know my name because I am the only and I stand out. And so I would always dress maybe more conservative and so that I didn't call attention to myself. And so I guess the question I have for you, what kind of risk is involved in being bold for Black women or women of color specifically?
That's a great question. I think the risk in being bold for women and for Black women, and I think even other women of color, is the perception, right? The perception and all of the negative gender-related bias language that's tied to that, right? So, because when I talk about being bold in the workplaces, I'm talking about that inner boldness that you have to take a risk, to go after what you want, to speak up when others are not, right? To build the relationships and the goodwill in the workplace. But what often happens is when I do speak up, when I do shut someone down who is going in the wrong direction, when I demonstrate a level of commitment and passion, it's turned into, she's emotional, she's combative, she's hard and difficult to work with, she's angry. And we are not angry. But we have the same sort of passion and commitment and, forthright thought as men do, but it's often mislabeled. And unfortunately, Deborah, it's often mislabeled by us, right? You probably have heard those things. Oh, I don't want to work for a woman because she is. And then it's a list of very negative characteristics and adjectives to describe what she is performing at the same level, taking the same positioning, responding the same way as her male colleagues and counterparts. So I think, that's the biggest risk. The two things: women will mislabel it, and we shouldn't do that to one another. And then two, just overall, the microaggressions around women who are strong, bold, committed, demanding even leaders in the workplace are not considered. They don't get that same level of respect and honor as their male counterparts. And in particularly, their white male counterparts. They don't get the same level of respect or even reverence, right? We love strong leaders, but not when they're women, and definitely not when they're Black women.
That was a mouthful. And finally, so the question, if I'm watching this, I would be like, whoa, that's how I'm going to be perceived. So I guess the point that I want to leave this segment in terms of mindset with, what can you do to steel yourself? Because we're talking about mindset, right? Mm-hmm. And acknowledge that this exists in the workplace and still test the waters and be bold.
What I do with my clients, Deborah, is tell them that you can be all of those things, but you can't be those things in isolation. You can be bold and strong. You can be, forthright. You can be a woman who speaks truth to status quo behavior, but you got to build relationships. And that's a mindset thing too. We got to break some of these negative, maybe the distrust, right? So sometimes as women of color and Black women, we have had some moments where people have betrayed us at work. They betrayed us in our personal lives. And sometimes we don't know how to let that go. So we're guarded. And we're guarded for right reasons, right? There are factual reasons. We got the evidence and the receipts to say why this happened and why we've taken on this other behavior. But I will tell you, the women in the workplace, and I bet you probably experienced this too, who are the most successful in climbing the corporate ladder, getting what they want, negotiating, getting the yeses that they need, are women who have built relationships with people across difference in the workplace. They have a group of mentors and sponsors and allies who are like, you know what, Deborah, I trust you, I believe in you, and I know you. And they may know a little bit they might not know all your stuff, all your business, but you created a way that they know a little bit about you. They have a lens in what your core values are, what's important to you, maybe even a little bit about your personal life. And that is, I think, the way that women are successful. And you can create mindset around that, right? That can be a mantra, right? People like me, they love to work with me, and they trust me, and I trust them, right? That's so good. That's so good, because that's what I'm excited about. And that's why I was excited to talk with you. Is next up is strategy. And that's exactly what you're talking about. So now we're going to talk about getting out of your head, because now you got the right mindset, but now you got to execute and really apply what you know you need to do. So when we come back, folks, don't go anywhere, because this is a conversation that needs to be had. Don't need to be stuck. You can become unstoppable. And that's what we're going to talk about, strategy, when we come back.
Let's be honest, as successful women, we're crushing it. Maxed out 401k and Roth IRA? Check. Aggressive savings and investments? Check. Yet, the freedom our success was supposed to buy can leave us stuck on the six-figure hamster wheel, watching retirement slip further down the road. There's another way. Get coaching courses and community at wealthyu.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Deborah Owens, and you're watching Get Wealthy, and we're talking about how to get wealthy in your career. My guest today is Janine K. Brown. She is the author of Unstuck and Unstoppable. I'm looking at her book right now. It's next to me, and I can't put it down. So, Janine, let's talk about, we talked about mindset, and I so love the way you frame that about I'm likable. Right. And having mantras that can really build us up so that we can develop those relationships. And one of the things that I learned early on in my career that I think can oftentimes be a landmine for Black women and women of color in their careers is not understanding the importance of doing dinner. And so when I say doing, I learned that in my management training. It's going outside of the workplace so that you can develop relationships with people that don't necessarily have to do with, as you so aptly put, your skill set.
Doing dinner is everything. Dinner, lunch, and breakfast. Deborah, I tell my clients when I'm working with them in an executive coaching relationship, that's one of the first things I actually have it on the intake sheet. How many of your clients or stakeholders do you go to lunch with each month? And most of the time it's zero. People don't do it. They will go to lunch maybe with someone, maybe before the pandemic, if it was a group setting, but they weren't intentional about scheduling lunch with their leadership in their organization. They would never go ask the partner in the corner office just to go to lunch with them. They would only do it if it was a group thing or a work-related function. They don't invite their clients. They don't even invite colleagues in the same position doing the same work at a competing firm. There is money on the table. People are leaving money on the table. I love the phrase, your network equals your net worth. It is so true. I believe in having meals and talking about things related to the work, the industry, and the clients you serve outside of the day-to-day work. Your work day. You don't have to only do that between, 9 and 5 o'clock. You really should go to dinner because there are things that you will learn about your industry, learn about this going on with your company that people aren't talking about in the office. So if you don't have it, you need to go to dinner, go to lunch, go to breakfast with someone that you work with or a client or a stakeholder.
Well, what you just described really, Janine, is career strategies. Mm-hmm. And in your book, what I love is that you have really put a framework together, and it is the 5 strategies for becoming unstuck and unstoppable. And we're certainly touching on one of those strategies, and that really is building relationships and a network. But before we go any further, I'd love for you to give our audience like an example who applied one of those strategies, and you don't have to put names or anything like that, but an example of one of your clients who applied one of these strategies and actually became unstuck and unstoppable.
There's so many. Deborah, the best clients are the ones that do what you, follow the framework.
Don't even go there, girl. Don't even go there.
With the framework. And so I am really fortunate to say, I know at least 90% of my clients who apply these frameworks have received either 40% or more in a compensation from one job to the next, or even within their organization. They went back and renegotiated their employee agreement with their leadership and realized I was leaving so much on the table. So I have one particular story in the book, and she was a client and friend, but I think her story is perfect for this conversation. She had left an organization she had worked with right out of college, and she knew she wanted to come back in that organization as a partner. And I remember we were together at a conference, and she mentioned it to some folks that she used to work with. Some of them were partners already in the firm, and she was in a pretty senior, visible leadership role in a government organization, a governance organization, and was leading the local office in the city she was in, traveling back and forth to DC, just really high visible roles. And I remember when she told them that she wanted to come back, but she wanted to be a direct admit partner. And so what that means is she wanted to come back and have the partner title. She didn't want to work her way back up to partner. She wanted them to hire and say, we're bringing you back in and you're going to be a partner in this particular practice. When I watched how people interacted with her and was telling her, oh, you got to come back, they really treated her like they were her big brother, big sister, like she was a kid. And I was like, they don't even realize what she's doing and what she's saying. And we talked that night, and I said, these are the things that you need to do. You need to be clear about who you are and what you want to achieve. You need to make sure that your skills, level up your skills, whatever you're missing. And you get those skills through board leadership, working in high visible volunteer roles that are respected in your profession. You get your name out there, writing articles, whatever it is, right? Be clear about the skills you need and start networking with people who see you the way you see yourself. And she followed
good.
She followed that framework. Ended up going back to school, which wasn't on her agenda, to get another degree from an Ivy League school. Everybody doesn't have to do that, but that just happened to fall in her lap. And guess what? She went back as a direct admit partner. And all of those people who were kind of giggling and telling her she was going to have to come back at a lower role and work her way back up were shocked and amazed. That what she said, but she spoke it, right? When we talk about mindset, she spoke it, she put a plan together, she followed the advice that I gave her and more, and she came back and she was a partner in that firm.
That's interesting that one of the points that you make, and I hope our audience really gets this, is that perception is reality. And the words that we use are creating that perception. Mm-hmm. And I do believe, and I that sometimes women specifically, and I've been guilty of this, and I remember a very powerful man saying this to me, and that was that everybody doesn't have to like you. And I had to receive that in the right way, because sometimes what we don't understand is that being a people pleaser or doing things, acquiescing, I think is something that I found myself doing, even though I knew that I could be more powerful, but not wanting to shine too much because, my leaders or my, my management team wanting to be that team player, not recognizing that the level of over me was observing me to see if I could conduct myself in a role where others at my level would respect me even more so, because I had that, and that's leadership, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's the point that you're making for her, that she had to realize how she was being perceived, and that perception was one which wouldn't lead her into senior management. But you brought something else up, and I do think, and particularly in Wealthy U and our Wealthy U community, what I do see is women going into significant debt in order to enhance their skill set. And so I'd like for you to just talk to us about what are some strategies that women can use to get those credentials without putting themselves in financial jeopardy.
Yeah. So, there are some women will end up, could possibly go back to college and get a free education, but it's hard, once you get out of undergrad. I think the first thing I would tell anybody is the first thing I would do is actually hire an experienced executive coach who understands your industry, understands where you are in your profession, and can help you put a framework together to decide what to do. I think sometimes we make these decisions in isolation, and we think we have to do what others have done. So we think, oh, this person got an MBA, they got an executive MBA from Kellogg, and I got to do the same thing to get promoted. But what they don't know is that a lot of people get those advanced degrees and those expensive degrees and don't exponentially increase their income and their salaries. They don't know how to do that, even getting the degree, because what they don't tell you is that when you go to grad school, they don't tell you how to manage your career. It's just more education. So that would be the first thing, Deborah, I would tell people to do is get an executive coach. Have a thought partner in the process that is unbiased and has nothing to gain and nothing to lose by the decisions that you make, right? And you can have thoughtful conversations about it. And then I would say, figure out what those success strategies are that others have done. And this is again about the relationship building. Talk to the people in your organization that are in the roles that you want and find out what they had to do to get there. Find out what skill sets, what kind of, things that they have to learn to become. Because I think one of the things that happens with Black women, we got the good gene of looking young, right? And sometimes that works against us. It used to work against me, right? People would think, that I was sometimes 5 to 7 years younger than I was. They would also think that the white man that was in the room with me was senior than me. And so you're working against some of these biases. And then because if you are focused on being likable, what happens is that you don't look like you're leadership ready, right? Because you're being, so you're not demonstrating that you can make tough decisions. And the perception that becomes reality is that you're too young, right? You don't have enough gravitas to move into this role, to lead this team. And so I think that's what happens to a lot of women is that they're not positioning themselves. But I'll tell you, executive coaching does it. Deborah, right? If most executives in organizations have a coach, they've worked with a coach for a long time, and they constantly keep a coach on speed dial because they need a safe place to go to help make decisions. And they're constantly managing and being strategic about their salary, their career, and then that career, what does that salary, the salary that they make, the benefits that they can negotiate, and the opportunities that are out there. They get a chance to have a place to go and talk those through.
That's good, because this is a great segue, because when we come back, we're going right into execution. I want to talk about, I think oftentimes, if you have never, what I find interesting is the amount of Black women specifically who have never hired anyone for their professional development. And I'm sure you're aware of that too. So when we come back, that's the discussion I want to have around how do you find that and execute on that. So folks, when we come back, we've covered mindset, just talking about the mindset that you need to have in order to move beyond and become unstoppable in your career. We've talked about some strategies, and it really is about how you proceed. But now we want to talk about executing on what we've discussed so far. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back.
Put 10 in here?
10, and you don't come out till you die. And you eat him, you eat 10.
Oh my God.
So what?
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Deborah Owens, and we've been having a wonderful conversation about becoming unstuck and unstoppable with Janine K. Brown. Janine, we left off. When we left off, we were talking about the fact that you need to get help, right? Like you need to hire, when you're going to that level, you need to have someone who is unbiased. And I think, and so I want to start there when it comes to execution, because I believe, and certainly I had this in my career, that many people feel like HR and, internally that you can have these conversations about your career and that's where you're there for, and you can do all those professional development courses within. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't take advantage of that, but I really would like you speak on the difference between having an internal advocate and someone who's outside, and why executive coach is a good strategy for that.
I think the biggest difference is anybody inside your organization that you're working for is working for the company first. So when you go to HR with a complaint or a need, they're looking at it through the lens of what's best for the organization. Before they look at it, what's best for you. So that's just the truth, right? That's what they're hired to do. But what most women don't know is that when they're negotiating to take a new role or a promotion, they don't negotiate their professional development. And that's a negotiable benefit, right? Negotiate training both in the organization and externally, conferences that you want to attend, and support like an executive coach. Most companies you can negotiate it. They know how much they want to spend and are able to spend on professional development. So if you think that the only training that you have access to is that is initiated by the organization, then you are completely misled. And so now we done broke that, right? So now you can go back and say, hey, let me go look at these conferences in my industry or things that I want to develop so I can be there and be in the room, because that's developing. Networking is part of your development. And then I would say, talk to your leadership. Most of the people that we work with in my firm that we coach, their companies pay for coaching, because coaching is an investment. And so if, you're making an investment in yourself, if your company doesn't pay for it, but I'll tell you, most of our roster, our companies pay for it. Companies hire us to coach their professionals. And I challenge them when they give me a roster of women they want us to coach, or even men. I'm like, well, we're the Black people. That's the first thing I ask them. I do. And to the point now they know, like, come on, I know you have to have some Black professionals in here that you're trying to retain, because what we find is that companies, they use it to, like, we got an outreach recently. A company wants to talk about retaining Black professionals and what we can do. Well, you know what? The same thing you do to retain all your other professionals is what you need to do. But the coaching is a big part of that, and being able to negotiate along with all your other benefits. And I think, Deborah, you know this, when we talk about building wealth in your career, a lot of it is because we don't even know what to negotiate. We don't know that we can negotiate deferred compensation in some of these roles, equity and stock options, and more stock options we can negotiate the percentage of our raises, that we can take the good work that we're being rewarded for by getting more work and saying, hey, this is what I've done. This is the impact that I'm making in this organization. I do this different and better than anyone else here, not only at this company, in my industry. Right?
Yeah, it is. I love that. And we haven't touched on branding, and I do want to touch on that. But one of the things you said was so critical, and that is the work that we focus on in Wealthy You. We call what you just described opportunity levels. Many times people are standing 10 feet away from goal, but because they don't know what it looks like, it's hidden from them. So let's talk about where the money resides, right? Yeah. The reason that you want to accelerate your career is it because it gives you access to those opportunity levers, like stock options, like executive coaching, like professional development, like the company actually paying for your executive MBA program. Mm-hmm. In any role that I have taken, before I have taken it, I've already had a strategic reason for even considering it. and knowing that based on my value, in order for me to be able to perform at a high level and really create value for your organization, this is what we need to do to make it a win-win. And so to that end, one of the points you make in the book really is about negotiation. We talked about, you just described, girl, this is what you need to be, negotiating for. Who do they need to be negotiating with? Is it their senior leadership? Is it HR? Just talk to us a little bit about how that process would be initiated.
So one of the reasons a lot of women don't know what's negotiable or even realize what the gap is because they're moving into roles that they're already overqualified for. So Deborah, most people apply for jobs they can already do. So there is no readiness gap that the organization can say, oh, we know you can do this job, but we want to ensure your success, so we're going to make sure you have a coach. See, that's what happens with men. They apply for a job that they're achieved, they have potential to get into. That's the word, right? So they apply for it. There's potential to do it, but we want to make sure they're going to be successful. So we're going to give them a coach. If we can get more women to apply for roles that they're not necessarily ready for, but they can qualify for, then they can have these conversations. And who should they be talking to? They need to be talking to other leaders in the organization, not HR. Because HR isn't the final decision maker on the yes to the executive coach, to the compensation, right? They put the package together that's been told to them. I will call down to HR, hey, I'm hiring Deborah for this role. They're telling the HR professional, this is what we're going to pay her. This is what, they tell them. HR doesn't tell the hiring manager. So you need to be talking to leadership over dinner, breakfast, or lunch, right? And saying, what kind of benefits do you get at this level in this organization? What kind of things should I be considering when I'm thinking about moving to the next level? What kind of financial things? See, we don't ask those questions. We ask, well, what kind of skills do I need?
Yeah, well, we don't.
Should I know how to do pivot tables in Excel? And, no.
No, but that's doing the work. But I think here's what I believe. I believe, and it's not what I believe. I mean, the studies show is that a woman will look at a role to pursue and it'll say you need these 10 different skill sets, right? And then she'll say, oh, well, I have 7. I'll go back when I get the other 3. Whereas the man will say, oh,
I got 4.
You need these 10? I got 4. The rest I just, I'll wing it or I'll get someone to teach me. And so that really is your point.
That is my point.
And I think that what we have to understand at those levels are the dynamics and how they play a role. And the reason I wanted you to really delineate between who people need to be talking to, because I think what happens is, people, they go on the internal network, they see what roles are available, and rather than seeking it out and seeing who is the senior leader they would be reporting to and doing, and here's what I call, and I think it's like a ninja move, I'm telling you, and I want to get your view on it, and it's just informational interviews. Don't go to people asking for a job or you want this role. Just go to people and say, you schedule a time with a senior leader and you say, hey, I'd just like to discuss, your role, what you've done to get there. You go and you interview them. Everybody wants to talk about them. And then you say, hey, here I am. You already have something specific you want to talk to about. This is the role I'm trying to achieve. If you were me, what would you do? And I want to get your thoughts on how to really manage the work environment to your benefit.
Deborah, you just laid it out. That's exactly what I tell my clients to do. And I tell them, go and be really clear about what your questions are and be specific about what you need from that person after that informational interview, right? Because the people that you're doing informational interviews and having conversations with are busy people, right? They're probably busier than you are. So you want to make sure you maximize that 30-minute conversation, that 20-minute coffee chat, and be really clear, right? Ask them, what do you think I need to do? And then tell them the roles that you're interested in. Do not leave that conversation without an ask and a tell. And the reason that's important is because you have to tell them why you're doing it. Like, why am I talking to you? I'm talking to you because I want to be promoted to senior vice president in information technology, where I have oversight over this, right? Because what happens is they'll remember that. And when they're in meetings that you're not invited to, and they're talking about who they're looking for, who are the next leaders, we're talking about concession planning. We're talking about new opportunities coming online. They'll remember. They'll be like, oh, I talked to Deborah and I think she would be great. We need to put her on the list to make sure that we're talking to her when this role opens up. And a lot of people they don't know your name because you got your head down and you're doing this hard work and you're trying to be excellent and you're working twice as hard as everybody else because you believe that's what you got to be twice as better. And guess what? But you're not talking enough. So you got to go in those information interviews and while you're networking over breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you got to tell people, you got to have a tell and you have to have an ask. And the ask is, hey, can I count on you to support me? Would you be willing to have more meetings with me? Can I check in with you maybe once a quarter, right? Whatever that ask is, be clear about it and then hold yourself accountable to making sure you're holding them accountable to supporting you.
I love that, Janine. Or would you be willing to introduce me be specific. Love this, man. We've covered a lot of ground, and when we come back.
Can I touch on that a little bit?
Well, we're going to do that when we come back. We're going to come out of this and we're going to go right into that because it's our lightning round, and you're going to be able to say whatever you want to say so that you can tell the people that are watching what they need to do to become unstuck and unstoppable. So folks, don't go anywhere. When we come back, it's our analyze, optimize, and maximize round. And that's when we're going to be putting all of this in order so you know exactly what you need to do. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back.
Black Star Network is here.
A real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Deborah Owens, and we've been having a conversation about how to get wealthy in your career with Janine K. Brown. She's the author of Unstuck and Unstoppable. Janine, you've given us so much today, but I want to talk about now, how can we pull this all together? So let's talk about how we can analyze, optimize, and maximize all of the things that we've discussed today. So welcome back, Janine.
Well, thank you, Deborah. Glad to be here.
Excellent. So when we ended the last segment, we were talking about something that you wanted to expand on. And this is our Analyze, Optimize, Maximize segment. So I want to start with analyzing a lot of the information that you have, basically given us on what Black women of color need to do. So let's expand on what we were just talking about as it relates to being specific and asking for something specific.
Yeah, I liked when we were talking about asking for introductions. I think don't be shy or afraid to ask someone in your network or in your organization to introduce you to someone, to make a connection. When I was younger in my career and I worked in public accounting at a global one of the big 4 public accounting firms here in Atlanta, I remember talking to one of the partners, and there was someone in the community I wanted to meet. And I would ask those questions like, hey, do you happen to know this person? And I had an opportunity because I did that to meet a lot of civil rights leaders. They weren't just in my profession. So I got to meet, these civil rights leaders, politicians, executives in industries that I didn't serve. And that's how I built my network in Atlanta. There's probably, you can say, hey, do you know this person? And I probably say, if I don't know them, I have a 1-degree connection with them. So I think that's the other thing. We have to be willing and humble enough to, one, know who we need to know, but also know that it's okay to ask people to make an introduction to you and move away from, I don't need any new friends, and say, I'm always looking for new friends and new contacts and new relationships.
It's so important, Janine. The point of that introduction and why that introduction is important, and this is what I want the audience to understand, is because when someone introduces you in, they are using your influence. And what it does, it accelerates the know, like, trust factor, right? Because if I come in and I'm introduced, and someone they trust already knows you, they know that person is not going to say, introduce you in unless you've already vetted them. And so that's important. But you also brought up another point that I think is critical. I think oftentimes we're very insular, just in terms of our careers. And we may think that we're in the accounting profession. I wanted to talk about organizations that we needed to be involved in. But we'll stay in, I'm a CPA, I'm going to be in the National Association of Accountants or whatever. Talk to us a little bit about why that going outside of your circle and meeting leaders of influence in all different kinds of industries or capacities is important.
Well, one, I think it helps us become better thinkers when we know people in other industries, because they have different viewpoints and different experiences. And so I'm always challenging myself to look at a situation or, to analyze things through a different lens, right? Because educators have a different viewpoint than those of us who were in executive leadership about a situation. So I think that's the first thing. Then I think it just gives you a richer, more robust network when, as an accountant, I have friends who are attorneys, school teachers, people who are engineers, people who even may be in other white collar professions like construction. And then if I have the responsibility to build clients within my organization, I can do that because I have more people that I can reach out to. I think when we stay and only talk accountants, only network and talk with and vacation with accountants, then you don't get to see the whole 360 view of how business is run. I'll tell you, when I started working in the manufacturing industry, I started building relationship with plant managers who were completely different than me, but they had so much operational experience and insight, which is really what was the reason I went back to get an MBA, because what I recognized is that I didn't know enough about business in the way that I needed to work with plant managers and to understand their needs and understand how businesses grow and understand about investments and expanding. I knew the accounting piece of it and the taxation part, but not the whole piece. And so just hanging around plant managers, I learned some new vocabulary words, but I also learned so much more about businesses and managing teams. Right. So my sharing that is that you just learn so much more when you can expand your network. And then you find out about opportunities, right? So I was finding out new opportunities around business. And then when I started my own firm, I still had all of this rich knowledge, this rich network, right? So I'm moving into entrepreneurship, and I could call upon all these people and say, hey, this is what I'm doing now. And they was, oh, we need you. They trusted me in this other profession. So their expectation was, oh, she can come in here and do this new thing that she's doing with our employees. And our business grew much faster because of the network.
And again, it's not who you know, it's who knows you, right? And so I think that that's the other side of that. Your network is your net worth. and it, really making sure that you're building those relationships. And at the end of the day, it's trust. The other question that I had for you, Janine, was I know that there are a lot of people who find themselves stuck, and maybe they're mid-career and they know they should be further ahead. And so my question to you is, what can you do now to maximize? So you have this body of work, and now you want to kind of leapfrog. What advice would you give someone who finds themselves in that situation?
Well, the first piece of advice I would give them is, one, to purchase my book, Unstuck and Unstoppable. Get the 5 strategies to leverage your career and accelerate yourself. And then I would say, let's get a strategy together. Get out the pen and paper, put the computer down, get out the pen and paper, and let's walk through a strategic plan about what you need. Right? All the things that we've shared today, Deborah, are just really key things that women can do. One, I would say, let's check and see who's in your network, who in your organization knows you, and who do you still need to get to know? What do you want to accomplish? I even tell people to start with the end in mind. What's the job you want to retire with? At your retirement party, when they are celebrating you, what do you want them to say was your last role in the organization? And what do you want that compensation to be? I want to leave being an executive vice president over, customer experience at Bank of America. And I want to be making $325,000 a year. And these are all my benefits. Okay. Then we know where we're going. Then we can figure out how did others get there, and what do you need to get there? And then I would say, get an executive coach, because I have seen, even with my own clients at our firm, that when people coach with us, they level up their knowledge about business, their roles, negotiations, building better relationships, and what opportunities are out there. Because by the time you set your goal, you've seen this, Deborah, the job that you want might not even be a job anymore, but new jobs and new things have come online. Because that's how fast business is moving. So having that executive coach there to help you stay ahead of the game is going to be essential if you want to leapfrog. It is possible to do that without going back to school. You can do short-term learnings like certification programs, leadership development programs at universities, or through other programs, other independent programs, like we have one for women, and ours is certified, and our clients will say, hey, we want to bring people through your program because we've seen the results. So there's a lot of things you have to do without going back to get another 2-year degree, making a $75,000 to $100,000 investment. You can make an investment, a fraction of that, by getting an executive coach, reading the book Unstuck and Unstoppable, but really being clear about the strategy and where you're taking your career, so that you can get there. Because if you don't have a target, and a lot of women are scared to say what that job is they want because they don't want to put it out there. But say the job, because if you don't say what role you want, how do you know when you're going to get it? How do you know what it is when you get there? Right? So
that's so good. Yeah, that's so good, Janine.
Achieve it.
You know what? Well, let me just say this. You were speaking music to my ears when you said you don't have to go invest another $75,000 to $100,000. There is strategy. And finally, Janine, how does our audience get in contact with you and learn more about the work that you do?
So they can reach me at on our website at everyday-lead.com. So that's where we do the bulk of our work with clients. We do professional development training programs. We curate roundtables and other events for men and women in their organizations. And we do them through the lens of diversity and creating psychologically safe spaces for organizations. And we also offer executive coaching. If you want to invest in executive coaching yourself, you can hit us up there. If your company wants to do that, we do that too. You can purchase my book on Amazon and also get more information about the book at unstuckandunstoppablebook.com.
Excellent. We're going to make sure that we have the link to how you can connect with Janine K. Brown. Janine, thanks so much for sharing how we can become unstuck and unstoppable. When we come back, folks, the 3 takeaways from today's show that you need so that you can become unstuck, stuck, and unstoppable. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause, too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is Marketing Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is rolling@marketing.com.
I'm Deborah Owens, host of Get Wealthy, right here on Black Star Network, and I hope you've enjoyed our conversation around what you need to do to get wealthy in your career. As I said, many of you are sitting 10 feet away from gold. It's just hidden from you, and that's what we wanted you to share with you today. And so here are the 3 takeaways from today's show. Number 1 is you have to be the leader of your career. No one's going to tap you on the shoulder and say you're doing a great job. And secondly, you have to communicate your value, how you add value to the organization's bottom line. And then finally, be your own best advocate. Have the right mindset, the right strategy, and execute. I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and thank you so much for joining us today, right here on Black Star Network.